It looks like you're going to have a new president very, very soon.
If everything goes the way that it's been going for the last 2 or 3 days, really, Joe Biden should be declared the winner sometime this afternoon. Some people that I'm talking to are surprised that networks haven't called this election already. And I do think that the president's rhetoric has really put a lot of pressure on showing that this election really is fair and legitimate. And what we're seeing so far is both county and state executives, but also I think the media in this country really doing a great deal to try to show the American people that this is a free and fair election.
If President Trump is not elected, Alex, in 2020, do you think he will try again in 2024?
It's an open question. In 2024, he will be, I believe, about as old as Joe Biden is now. I think certainly members of his family will be eyeing the presidency in 2024. One can imagine that Donald Trump will wage something like a permanent campaign between now and the next election, regardless of if he runs. I think what we're seeing basically since election night is a preview of what's to come, which is the president endlessly blaming others, casting doubt about the election result, and refusing to acknowledge what the rest of us are all seeing.
Now, the rhetoric, Peter Stefanovic, our correspondent who's over in Washington, D.C. at the moment, read out the latest, and it's just come through this morning from Washington, D.C. and from the president. It was a much toned-down statement, Alex. Look, the president making a concession is almost impossible, but it almost goes back to Richard Nixon, doesn't it, where, you know, find a piece of ground and defend it. And that looks like the way that this may happen.
The dynamic, I think, to watch over the next couple of days is going to be in statements like this that are clearly written by committee to some extent, where this statement, although it did have the same kind of rhetoric that you've seen about there somehow being, you know, legitimate and illegitimate votes, that's obviously not the case. The votes that are being counted are all legitimate ballots. But at the same time, you do see this transition into language about how this is, you know, not just about this presidential election. Those are not the kinds of words that you write if you expect to win another term. The president is going to keep challenging these results. There's no question about that. But I think what the people around him do over, you know, the next 24 hours, but also honestly between now and the inauguration is going to be crucial. And I think what we're seeing now can only be described as a climb down. This is an acknowledgement from people who are close to the president that he is not winning this election and he will not be reelected.
Yeah, talk us through the possible transition, because hopefully it's going to be as smooth as possible.
That's certainly the hope, but this is going to be an unprecedented transition, at least in modern American politics. The idea that the President Trump, or in fact many of the people close to him, will feel the need to extend the kinds of courtesies and helping hands that you certainly saw Barack Obama extend in 2016. You saw George W. Bush extend in 2008. You can go on and on and on. That most likely isn't going to happen. This is going to be an unprecedented period, and it's worth underlining that we've been, you know, over 100,000 new cases of COVID-19 for the last several days as well. The pandemic in this country, while this is happening, by all accounts from medical experts, is going to continue to rage. I think even if the situation that we're seeing right now gets smoothed over, we're heading towards a very chaotic 2-month period in which, you know, arguably no one will seem to be in control.
It's been an unprecedented year. It's been a turbulent year in the midst of a pandemic. America now having figures of over 100,000 people a day. From a street perspective, thankfully, most of the protests to this point have been peaceful.
Yeah, I think what we've certainly seen some action. You know, here in New York, there have been protests, although they've mostly been unrelated to the election itself. The danger, I think, with the president's rhetoric right now, particularly with the rhetoric coming from the president's children, who are calling for war in some cases, albeit not in a direct way, but that's really dangerous. And I think, you know, the fear of violence at places where votes are being counted has been very real. I think this period, particularly if it stretches out, if there's a lot of limbo, if people in the president's camp continue to insist that this election is being stolen, then I think you could see some violence. But I think right now, you know, certainly what people were worried about. That hasn't come to pass for the moment, and I think we should all be very thankful for that.
Absolutely. I heard reports this week of 17 million guns sold between January and September. So some very big stats there. And also, if Donald Trump is not the president from 2020, that would make him the third president since World War II not to secure a second term.
Yeah, it's remarkable. I think, the election margins are certainly, I think, closer than definitely a lot of Democrats that I've been talking to were hoping for. But incumbent presidents in this country have a profound advantage. Donald Trump, despite being historically unpopular.
We've got some live shots for you now in Washington.
We still have you though, Alex. And
Yeah.
if you continue over these live shots, there's a fairly vocal protest in Washington, D.C. where our reporter is.
Yeah, I mean, this I think we're going to see scenes like this throughout the country. We already have. The worry going forward is that these will continue to be escalated even as the outcome of this election just becomes clearer and clearer, and that's because the president, certainly as we saw last night in his personal statements, he's really pushing for these people to come out. He's demanding that Republicans stand behind him and encourage this kind of behavior.
Although it's not the blue wave that a lot of people thought it may have been, once you think of what could happen in Pennsylvania, just say that Joe Biden wins by 40,000 and he does win Georgia and does win Arizona and Nevada, that will take his electoral college votes over 300. Now, that's a reasonable sized win in the end.
Yeah, I think if I had told a lot of the Democrats that I've been talking to that in 2020 they would win not only 306 electoral votes, but they would win, it seems, in Arizona and Georgia, the two places they haven't won in a long, long time, they would be very happy. And I think what people are disappointed about, they should be disappointed about, which is that the Senate margins just aren't what they were hoping they would be, and that Biden's administration is, he's going to preside over a divided Congress. If you were somebody who wanted a Green New Deal, you're somebody who wanted a New Deal-sized presidency, that's probably not going to happen. But that doesn't mean that this isn't a popular mandate for Joe Biden, because I think it certainly is.
And how likely do you think the Republicans will hold on to the Senate? It's looking favourable at the moment.
Certainly, if you look at, they should be expected to hold on to at least one of the two seats in Georgia that will go to special election. Although, again, this is sort of an unprecedented environment, and if you've got a sitting president, telling people that elections themselves are illegitimate, that at least theoretically doesn't encourage your voters to come out. But I think the easiest seats, or the seats that Democrats are most likely to win in this election, they didn't win. Those two seats in Georgia are certainly going to be hotly contested. There's going to be hundreds of millions of dollars spent in that state between now and those elections. But Democrats, I think, really face an uphill battle there.
It's interesting, isn't it? Who would have ever thought that Georgia, going back, in the short history, would become such a centrepiece of American politics? The fact that we have this close electoral college battle and also the battle in the Senate.
It's remarkable. I think there's been so much organizing there over the last 4 years. Stacey Abrams, a lot of people were upset with her. She ran for governor unsuccessfully. She declined to run for Senate. And she said she didn't want to run for Senate because she wanted to devote her time to registering Democrats to vote in the hope of turning that state blue. And here we are. The Democrats have increased their vote share, I think, by something like 600,000 between now and the last election. It's really remarkable. It's unprecedented. I used to live in Atlanta. It's something that I never thought that I would see. And I think a lot of Democrats are looking at Georgia in particular as a real bright spot in a larger election that, wasn't necessarily the sort of grand slam that they hoped it would be, but that certainly has gotten the sort of ultimate goal accomplished.
Oh, we really appreciate you coming on. It's been a busy time for everyone. Just the last one, in Arizona, how much do you think that sort of bad blood between Donald Trump and the late John McCain has played out in the vote there?
I think you could probably determine from this that it was decisive. I think certainly Cindy McCain's endorsement made a big difference. And I think also Donald Trump did not do himself very many favors there by also repeatedly attacking Martha McSally, who has now been declared the loser. She was the Republican senator there. And, you had a state that Republicans have won since 1992. And those attacks on Senator McCain in particular, I think they really doomed the Trump campaign, along with the sort of larger suburban wave that we've seen from 2018 to the present.
Well, it's the final sprint, and as always, we appreciate your expertise and updating us. Alex Shephard, we'll talk to you again, no doubt, very soon.
Thank you.